How are you?
I'm well. How are you? I'm well. Can you hear me?
Oh, it was my computer that was turned off.
Okay.
You have a tan. You have a suntan.
Yee! I did have nice weather.
Oh. So my research listening, and it was excruciating to listen to the last meeting, but I said, is there a way you could share those emails with the board? She said, sure, if you'd like. That's all I need to say really in the memo.
Right.
Um,
Let's see. Am I the trying to find out if I'm the
Hi, Muffin.
if I'm the host. I think I'm going to have to go off and come back on as the host. So
I think you are the host.
no, I can't. I just tried to mute you and I can't. So that means I'm not the host. Only because I was trying to see if I was the host. All right, I'll be back. That's interesting.
Hi, Muffin. She's frozen.
Hello, can you hear me? Muffin, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hello, Gary.
How are you?
And I just found out my earphones don't work. Hello, Sue.
Hi, John. I'm not sure why I'm not coming up as the host. And the only thing I need to make sure that we're doing is recording it. Please ask host to give you the permission to record.
Your name
not
has
on.
Manchester by the Sea after it. Does that mean?
Yeah, that's just a label. I'm gonna try this again.
I'll be right back.
Hey, Gary.
Chris? It's recording, Sue.
Is it?
The button is the red light is blinking, so somehow you got it to record.
So isn't it? Well, I think I set it up to record automatically. I thought it was green if it was recorded, but maybe not. If it's red, we're good. I don't think I'll need to do anything else as host, so. Hi, Muffin.
Hey, Sue, how are you?
I'm well. Hey, Chris.
Did you have a nice little break?
Did a nice, warm, comfortable break.
You have a
I
suntan.
don't see any suntan there.
I can't show you my suntan. Just have to take my word for it.
Were you somewhere when someone was playing lacrosse, or were you truly on a vacation?
I was truly on a vacation. Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Her season, as you know, her season is going to start next Monday.
Next Monday. Yep.
Yeah, she wasn't doing any club stuff.
No.
I see we're only playing Essex once. Is that on purpose?
Yeah, they're only, yes, I think it's only like a 10 game
Yeah.
season. Well, playing everybody that within the league,
Right.
to keep the possibility of any kind of transmission at a minimum.
Sure.
It's the way
Sure.
they've handled all the other sports too this year.
Got ya.
But at least they can get out and play.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
we're excited. And I was so busy, I did not send out a reminder notice today, but hopefully folks will remember. Or I could send one right now.
Oh, we're usually pretty good about.
Good. Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Peggy said she might be a little late. I noticed that she's out of town she had.
Oh, yeah, she was doing a college visit, I think. Yeah, finally. A physical college visit.
Right.
Nancy said she'd be a little late. So if you're saying, just
Okay.
from attendance point of view, so Joan is out? I'm sorry, Peggy.
No, Peggy,
She'll be here, but she thought she might be just a little late.
right.
Nancy will be late.
I haven't heard anything different from Sarah.
I haven't heard either. Yeah. But we did go over it at our last meeting and you sent out the notice.
I did. I just didn't send one yesterday or today since I was just kind of catching up.
Well, but you bumped the other emails forward, so maybe
That should have been a reminder, right?
maybe a little reminder.
So it should just be Joan. She knows.
Yep.
No, who else? It's
And
Joan and
Sarah.
Joan and Sarah.
Oh. Okay. That's only 3 minutes late.
I just sent a reminder.
It's been so long since we've had a question on a quorum or not. I think a quorum is 4, I believe.
Yeah, we
usually do pretty good on attendance.
yep. We need just one more.
We have a good representation of the planning board here, though. They're serious. They don't. Gary and Chris.
That's right.
Chris. Hey, Chris, are there 3 people running for 2 seats or 4 people running for? Okay, who's the 4th?
So there's Gar.
Oh, that's the one I didn't. Okay, so Gar, Laura Tenney, Sarah Clayton, and Christine. Okay,
Right.
okay.
Oh.
Should be quite a Donnybrook, I think.
Well, I know that Gary Russell hopped on the selectmen meeting last night and in the public comment there in the beginning encouraged the board to, I think encourage someone, I'm not sure who, to put together some kind of, I don't like the word debate, but some kind of event where the 4 candidates could kind of introduce themselves other than just a letter in the cricket kind of thing.
Eric,
So,
I think Eric is planning to have a forum, maybe on TV even.
well, I mean, when Gary was talking about it, it was logical to me that Erica was the one to be considering doing something, I'm sure. So that's
Yeah.
good. Because we've had them in the past. I had to go through one my first go around.
Did you?
Yeah, it was at the community center. I forget who sponsored it, but Alan was the moderator. And it was really good. After I got over my nerves, it was, I thought, a really good way to communicate who people are and what they think outside of just, a Facebook page or a letter in the cricket. So.
Mm.
Yeah, I'd love to have them all respond to the question as to whether they endorse the master plan or not. I think that would be interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that could be, one of the questions. I'll probably reach out to Erica anyway and just see if in fact she is trying to put something together and how is she going to go about it.
I spoke with her about it today and she is going to do it. She's already written all of them, asking them to submit something for print in the cricket.
Yeah.
And 3 of them have responded, 1 has not. And you might be able to guess. And
I do think she's away right now.
she also wants to do something live, I think, that would be recorded and probably be postable on Facebook and the 1623,
Right.
which
Right.
it's a really great series of interviews. They do that, the weekly or something?
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I think we can thank the pandemic for that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot we can thank COVID for, but that's something that 1623, I think really they dug in and realized that the opportunity was there to buff up their services. And that I really enjoy that when it comes out once a week.
And Erica is a smashing television personality. She's very, very upbeat and full of.
Yeah, she's very comfortable with it, which certainly helps.
So you're lacking a quorum, John.
Yeah, I know. This is not like us, Gary.
So did you submit all your current plans to all the different boards in town, including the Conservation Commission, for comment?
What plans?
Yeah.
I'm being a little sarcastic, but
From
that-
the last meeting, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, Gary's picking up one of the comments where someone, in the context of the consultant work
Oh,
and the
yes.
proposals for work at Loading Place, the Plains in Newport, there was some questions about wetlands and this and that, and have we vetted them with all of the committees in town?
Correct, I recall.
pre-design vetting.
We haven't done that yet.
And
But
you notice the large numbers of people that have joined this meeting along with Gary today. And interestingly, the selectmen's meeting was down to 21 people last night, including the board and those that had to be there.
Could we, I'm assuming we can continue, could we cover material that we would have discussed, but it's not an official meeting because we don't have a quorum? We're not going to make any decision here, but I could at least touch on some points that have we've explored since our last meeting. Is it?
I won't sue you, John.
Yeah, I think that's okay, don't you, Sue?
Yeah. Yeah, you can't make any decisions. You can't.
I'm
We're
not
not
gonna-
voting on anything, we're not,
voting
right.
on
We
approval, but-
We can chat while we're waiting
Yeah, so
for
why
a
don't
quorum.
there's two main things going on. One was at our last meeting, we voted to go along with the Citizens/North Shore CDC plan to route money through, and we also voted to approve if there was any legal review needed of the MOU. We got the authority to do that. As of yesterday, when I spoke to Joan, we had 383,000 some odd dollars that were delivered to Joan. Approximately 80 to 90 people contributed, some very large amount, some, a smaller amount.
Yeah.
She has then since deposited all in the Affordable Housing Trust account at, I believe it's Santander. So it's sitting there. So our question is, okay, we were led to believe it had to be available on the 19th. I spoke to Mickey yesterday and he said, well, yeah, no, he's looking to close between May 3rd and May 19th. A couple things need to happen for us to move the funds out. One, and he said he's going to be sending a draft this week. It has to do with an MOU that we had talked about at the meeting.
Yeah.
We could circulate that and hopefully it will be an acceptable form and we'll be able to sign that. And I believe that I believe folks gave me the okay to sign on behalf of the Affordable Housing Trust, but
We did,
I
yep.
can circulate it. But for ease of signatures, I'm okay signing it. But then the second, Joan said that it was a combination from Greg, but also from, I think from Sonia. We need to have some form of an invoice from North Shore CDC requesting the release of the funds. So talking to Mickey, the day before we anticipate releasing the funds, we could find out what's the exact amount in the account. I could reach out to Mickey, give it to him, and he'll put something on his letterhead saying, I hereby request release of funds for X, totaling X for the, so it'd be consistent with the MOU.
Yep.
I think it'd be good to get a draft, make a draft run of that before to make sure that it's, that the town will accept it as a proper invoice.
But I think that's a good idea.
Joan said she's calling in. I sent her a notice and she said, send her the phone number. So I expect she'll call in a few
Okay.
minutes and we can open officially. And Mickey just was texting me today. We've both been tag teaming between meetings, but we're going to talk tomorrow. He's begging his lawyers for the MOU. He's hoping to get it out to us this week, but he's still working on it.
Okay.
got some time. And then the other thing that I'll work on with is we'll send the acknowledgement letters, the receipt of to the donors, thanking them and reference the amounts. You know, it's going to North Shore CDC. We'll reference our 501c3, and that will end it.
John, you're breaking up a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought it was me.
There's nothing else that I report on. I know we had some discussion about after the meeting, we had some clarification on for the powder house development, what would qualify as an affordable unit eligible for the SHI. And it was determined, or we clarified that a couple steps have to happen. One, there has to be a fair housing plan formulated and approved. We have to have a form of a deed restriction. And then we don't, even though they're going to do income certification, they would have to apply the fair housing plan and a lottery process to units that are vacated. We can't just, if they're all occupied right now, and if they're all 100% affordable and they meet the criteria, we couldn't then make a case we're eligible for those units are eligible for the SHI. So it could take some time to reach that point where one, we have the vacancies, and then two, we start ringing up units that would be possibly eligible for the SHI. The other thing that we confirmed is, 25% of the units would need to be restricted through that process before all could be considered affordable.
You have a quorum now.
Yay.
All right, I was just doing a little. I had a little warm up act.
I apologize. It was off my radar screen.
It's okay.
I'm gonna push rewind. Give me a second.
I
Sorry,
was writing my FinCom report.
when Bruce Tar calls, I can't say no.
No, because you can't get a word in edgewise anyway to say no.
I know. Be in a meeting. That's it.
I'll formally open the.
Oh, John, your microphone is no good.
Sound better?
A little bit.
Keep going, let's test.
Okay, so anyway, I'll open up the meeting. Manchester
better.
Affordable Housing Trust dated April 21st, publicly advertised, and we do have a quorum in attendance. We have myself, we have Muffin, we have Nancy, Sarah, we have Chris, and I believe we'll also have perhaps calling in. Absent currently right now, we have Peggy. We did include we have an agenda. It's not many items on the agenda. I mean, we can go, do people prefer to some of the administrative stuff and then get into some of the discussion of which I was talking about?
Sure.
Okay, why don't we go in order of the agenda? One is the approval of the minutes. We have minutes from March 23rd and March 30th. Do we have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll move that be approved.
And I'll second.
Second. All in favor? Or
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, excellent. Sue, do you want to talk for a moment about the hours that?
Yes, and I apologize. I did not write them down. I was gone last week and I didn't get to it today. I think I had about 12 hours over the last four weeks since the 23rd. Just all of the same stuff, just getting ready for the meeting and corresponding with folks about the meeting. There were no kind of outliers that I was working on. Oh, that must be Joan.
Yeah.
Joan, is that you?
It is.
Excellent.
It is.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
No,
I've been
greetings.
tied up all afternoon.
Greetings.
Thank you.
Oh,
I'm good.
I mean, most of my hours were coordinating with Mickey and others about the, setting up the meeting for that,
yeah, we had
and
we had the 2 meetings and the back and forth. That's all reasonable in my interpretation. Any questions, comments on that, folks?
No.
Okay, well, we move on. Joan, do you have? Can you just give us a tally of where we are for the treasurer's report?
I can do it off the top of my head because I don't have anything with me. I'm sorry.
That's great.
So it's been a very busy treasurer's week. I don't know whether you've already had this conversation or not, but it's
Well,
been
Joan, why don't you do this? Why don't you talk right now about our account, and then we'll focus on another item relative to the contribution separately.
okay. So the only changes in the account from the balance that we had last time, which I don't have in front of me, is that we did pay $50,000 to Action Inc. And we paid $1,900 something. Is that my feedback?
No, but if
noise
you're
from
not
me?
talking, how about if we can mute, and then we'll see if we can identify who.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joan.
So there's been very little activity directly related to the Manchester Affordable Housing Trust in the account over the last few weeks. The only recent things were $50,000 that came out for Action Inc. when we renewed our contract with them, and a $1,900 something check that we sent to one of the contractors, Peregrine, I believe. But other than that, there's been a lot of money floating in, and I'll talk about that afterwards. Okay?
That's excellent.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't have anything more detailed.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine, and it's consistent. The 50K withdrawal and disbursement to Action Inc. was consistent with the vote that the Affordable Housing Trust had. So thank you for that.
Exactly. You're welcome.
And I don't believe we have an update on the emergency rental and mortgage relief program. I don't see anything. Sue, did you?
No, I did not receive anything from Peggy yesterday or today.
So I can make a note and reach out to her. And at a minimum, if we can get something by email, that would be good. Okay, so the next item is update on the discussion of the Manchester Housing Authority and the Manchester Affordable Housing Trust study outreach. Let's put that aside for a moment. Let's just go talk about, Joan, this is now where we can follow up on the citizens group. And as I mentioned, an informal discussion, this follows up our meeting of last month where we voted to approve our participation as a financial pass-through of funds to North Shore CDC. And we also approved of paying an attorney to help us review a memorandum of agreement that is being drafted right now. But one of the things that we agreed to was that we would receive checks. So Joan, why don't you give a summary of that?
So not knowing how many to expect and not knowing where it was all going to come from, I was completely shocked and awed by how many checks were delivered to my house, in my mailbox, in a basket that I put out in front of my house. I think that probably were about 80 checks, maybe 85 checks delivered to me for the payable to the Affordable Housing Trust that have been deposited into our account. And there were numerous wires and internal transfers between Santander accounts the bottom line is that there is about $383,000 in our account now that is going to be transferred out to North Shore CDC when we get the word, when we get the notice to do that. So the checks came, I don't know if you want me to get into any detail, but they ranged from $100,000 to $5. And it was unbelievable to watch this money coming in from so many generous people. But anyway, yeah, so I don't know what they got at the other side. I don't know what North Shore CDC ended up collecting, but I do know that we've got almost, what did I say, $383,000, I think, is
Yeah.
the final. And it's still coming in. I got two in the mail today, and it was another $2,000 wire in the account yesterday. So it hasn't stopped,
Okay.
even though they put they put in a deadline on it, but people are still sending it, so.
And then, Joan, as I mentioned to you yesterday, I spoke to Mickey and I expressed concern, when does he need the funds? Because I didn't want the Affordable Housing Trust to be in a position of delaying any closing. And he said anywhere between May 3rd and May 19th. And I also mentioned to folks here that in your conversations with folks at Town Hall, we need to have some form of an invoice that would be in our possession, and that would authorize us to pass the funds along. So I mentioned that to Mickey. He's gonna send that to me. What he was thinking is maybe we could review the form of it so that you can, or someone could just share it with someone at town so that they could confirm it's okay. And once that's okay,
Sure. Yep.
let's say like the day before we plan on moving the funds along, I could reach out to you and find out what's the actual dollar amount, and then I could pass that amount to Mickey so that he can have an accurate amount in his invoice to us.
In the request, yep, that's perfect. I met with Jennifer, the treasurer, last Thursday, so she was aware of all of the activity at that point, and I had reached out to her today to try to make an appointment with her to just bring her up to date tomorrow too, just so she has the information, because she needs the information too. So, but anyway, it's been a ride, and it's been amazing, and that's all I got.
Well, the other thing we talked about is that you and I thought it would be good to let's hold off on sending the recognition letters and the receipt letters up until that point when we release our funds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And letter
So I do want to tell you.
Go ahead.
So I did get, I got a thank you from, I don't know if you can hear me, it's pouring rain and I'm driving. I'm going to pull over. I got a response today from the SEMA group, who are sending thank yous out also, but it didn't have anything about a 501c3 or anything like that. It was just a thank you for the donation. So I know that we'll have to do that, because people will need that for their records, which is good.
Yeah. So we'll do that. I can work with you, and we'll coordinate it to the event when we release the funds.
Perfect.
Okay. And
Perfect.
so then when I talked to Mickey yesterday, he said there's been some discussion about, is North Shore CDC going to be reaching out to the Affordable Housing Trust for assistance? He goes, John, don't worry about it. I've got nothing up my sleeve right now. I want to get through this closing. I want to make an assessment on income certification, and then I'll be able to determine what, if any, additional support would be needed from the Affordable Housing Trust, whether or not I don't think it's related to, it would be acquisition. I think it'd probably be some form of a rehab, but he just wanted to say that he doesn't have anything imminent right now. And I just talked to him about our formal process, where just so that we're transparent and we're getting our funds out in an equitable way, that we have the application. And so we can deal with that at another date.
John, I have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yes, Sarah.
I talked to a neighbor who had made a contribution, and they were under the impression, right or wrong, that excess funds raised in conjunction with this effort would remain in the Affordable Housing Trust for future projects. And I didn't know if we had any conversations with respect to that.
Every dollar that comes to us, I'm assuming, and Joan will be better, will come with an earmark that it's going to the North Shore CDC. So our charge is to receive them, deposit them into our account, and move them over to North Shore CDC. That's where we're done with our tasks. So there's not going to be any balance remaining after.
So have nothing to do with the fact that they raised more than they were trying to raise.
I think Sarah raises a very interesting question because it's part of our mandate not to overfund any of these projects. And if we're collecting more than what they need for acquisition, maybe it can still be earmarked for the North Shore CDC, but reserved for renovations or something farther down the road.
Yeah, no, I that's what I envision happening, Chris. I agree. Now, so the question we have to protect ourselves when we have the MOU, perhaps we have a provision there saying we spell out, it's understood that excess funds beyond what's needed for acquisition would be retained by North Shore CDC and be used exclusively for the purposes of improvements at Powder House Hill, something like that.
And I assume that in the MOU will spell out exactly how much they need for acquisition and how much they've collected from their own source of donors and things as well.
Yeah, because the impression I received is people thought it would be held by the Manchester Affordable Housing Trust for other projects in town, not necessarily Powder Hill, but
Well,
who knows what you hear.
if they don't earmark it for Powder House, then yeah, I guess we can use it for anything we want.
Well, most of the checks have been coming with the pledge form. Not all of them, but most of them, and almost all of them have said in the memo line that it's for either North Shore CDC or Powder House or I think the donations that have been made were made specifically for this project.
Right.
I did talk to one person who wanted to be sure that if the project fell apart and it didn't happen, that the money that they donated would go back to the Manchester Affordable Housing Trust. He didn't want to be refunded, but he wanted us to get the money if for some reason this whole thing goes belly up and it doesn't happen.
Well, I think we got a legal ruling on that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sue. I think we got the interpretation that if we held the funds and for some reason, we get contributions, they're in our account, but for some reason the transaction doesn't go forward, do we have the ability to return them so long as they're earmarked for the development? But once we move them on to North Shore CDC, it's out of our account and we don't have the ability to recapture.
Right. Once we transfer, you can't recapture. But if it goes belly up and we return money, then folks would have the option of saying, no, you keep it. But we don't, that was that one person that asked that said, if for some reason it doesn't work out, I would like it to go to the Affordable Housing Trust. But I would think if we'd be wise, I don't think anything's going to go wrong, but if something did, we might just send a notice with all of those pledges to say we're happy to return it or we're happy to keep it for other projects. I'm guessing most would take it back, but I might not.
But it's really, it'll be tied to an event. We're not going to release the funds until we get the authorization from Mickey.
Correct.
So
Right.
let's assume he's going to tell us that. So that means it's a green light. We're moving the funds.
Right.
So everything's a go.
Right.
We don't hear from Mickey. And then, we hear the terrible news that's for some reason it fell through. We have those funds. We then would have the ability to, or I would perhaps even the responsibility.
Obligation.
Obligation to return them because they've been earmarked.
Yeah.
based on the
Yeah.
pledge level, you know, for that specific purpose.
Right.
All right, so those are good points to keep in mind for the MOU.
There's another question about the MOU. Are we going to spell out in the MOU what we think the affordable rent should be? Either what the AMI level should be or what the dollar amount of the rent should be.
John, do you want to share what Mickey had shared about right now putting it at MOU at the 80% because of he knows what the investors will want to see, but that his intention long-term is to put it to 60?
At or below 60. I'm struggling. I'm hesitating because I'm just trying to determine what role and how deep do we go into this when technically we are just a pass-through at this point in time,
Right.
and our responsibility is just to provide funds. Now, if he were to come to us and apply for use of funds, then I think we get a little bit deeper into the development. We do underwriting but right now, I got to admit, I hesitate getting into real details.
Well, the reason I think it's important is that the MOU is a critical element in getting this onto the LAU, whatever it's called, the local action units for the inventory.
SHI.
Yeah, the SHI.
I just think that that's beyond our scope of
Yep.
influence with respect to the MOU. It seems like what we agreed to do was a pass-through, and it
Right.
seems to me that it's up to the North Shore CDC to be working with the people who agreed to make the contributions to make sure the affordability level is consistent with what their expectations are.
But
I agree with Sarah.
I agree as well, but I don't want to dismiss what Chris is saying. I think there'll be another opportunity for us or the town to indicate support, if that's the right term, when the local action unit, the LAU rental application is submitted to DHCD.
Right.
I would say to Chris's point that in order to convince the trust that this was a worthy project, they did rather sell that this is real affordable. And now what I'm hearing is it's going to be 80% AMI at this point. And I think it was Mickey's intent to say, I'll put a promise in the MOU that we will move towards that. I think that was a bit of a selling point for them in getting the trust to think about it. So I'm on both sides. I understand that you want to be a pass-through and don't want to dig deeper, but I think they opened it up when they set them up saying it was a selling point.
And why is he going with the 80% AMI now? Is that because of existing tenants?
Yes.
It is. And my understanding is that what they're finding is that the rents were even lower than that they imagined.
Okay.
And that the pro forma that they're working with is going to require, at least on paper, for it to look like they can collect more, even though he said that he won't. I think he's playing a numbers game to make it look as if it's more solvent. And I think he has every confidence that he can make it work. But I think just in the paper game, he wants to allow that larger rent to make the numbers work.
But he doesn't have an expectation of increasing current rents.
He does not, and it has said he wouldn't. And I do think that's a valuable thing for the MOU. So I'm anxious to see what points he will put in the MOU on his own accord.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we could go.
Well, should we?
Go ahead, Joan.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to say, should we guide him to what we want him to give us rather than wait and see what he says, then come back and say, well, let's tweak that a little bit? I don't know.
I prefer to see what he has myself. And we could always add suggestions and take up something that Chris has added. We could say something as general as, it is our understanding or it is the intention of the project to accomplish the following, something like that. But I just hesitate saying that because do we say intention of, one, no eviction, two, abide by, he's going to then apply for a local action unit application. And as part of that, he is going to establish a fair marketing plan. Only a turnover are units going to be eligible for SHI. It seems like we're going into project details that might, I'm a little torn. And I come back to the request, the vote that we did was to
Pass through.
pass through, and we're really honoring wishes of the pledge letter.
Mhm.
Because for all we know, the pledge, someone is pledging based on what they saw in the pledge letter. And then what right do we have to put terms or conditions or intention that might not be in that pledge letter, or it might be different than what someone might understand.
Well, I think we have to recognize the fact that a lot of these people provided these funds specifically to make Powder House units be eligible for the SHI in hopes that it would block the 40B from happening on Shingle Hill. So
Exactly,
if
right.
it doesn't work out that way, I think we're going to be scapegoated, I guess.
I purposely, when we had our last couple meetings, I tried to separate
Right.
what you said there, Chris. This action is going to prevent, or hopefully prevent the SLV. I tried to be as specific as possible. You are just requesting us to act as a pass-through to support the Powder House Hill.
I think if we keep it at that, then we would be very hard pressed, or they would be very hard pressed to say that this was a municipal action, which is fine with me, but it may be against what they're looking for.
A municipal action with regard to like a possible application to DHCD?
A municipal, in order for a local action unit to go on this subsidized housing inventory. So there's local action units and there's 40B. So
Yes.
if this is the result of a local action, they would be hard pressed to say that a pass through is a local action. Again, which
No,
I'm
I don't
perfectly fine with, which I'm perfectly fine with.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I guess I'm questioning what is I think we have another opportunity, whether or not it's Affordable Housing Trust or it's the town or the Board of Selectmen.
I don't think it can be retroactive. I think
Well,
it's
no,
either, but
The LAU application hasn't been done yet. I'm assuming at that point in time.
an action, an action has to, a municipal action has to occur to bring these units on board. So
Before it goes to CBA, right?
this is nothing to do with the 40B. Before it goes, before we ask for them to be, before they become deed restricted.
So you're saying there has to be some form of quote unquote evidence that there is something.
But this is the town's will.
So, okay.
Town as in capital T. So, and again, I don't want to advise the citizens group, so.
Right.
Right, we're running out of time.
Well, I am perfectly open to seeing what he has as language in MOU, and we can always mark it up to address the questions that Chris has. I mean, I think I could put a couple bullet points in right now, but I'm
Yeah, okay, well, I think we should wait and see what Mickey puts in there. It's hopefully a form that's used in other projects as well, so.
Probably is.
So he's probably gonna reflect a lot of things that we'd want to include anyway.
okay.
Yeah.
So why don't I told him to send it to me. I wouldn't be surprised he sends it to Sue and me. Why don't we commit to, once we get that, we circulate it to folks, and then we have an opportunity for comment, and we could,
Yeah, and it sounds like we have time for another meeting clearly before anything happens,
Yeah.
the way this is going.
well, we can comment, if it happens before our meeting, we could do our traditional respond by email to Sue,
Mhm.
and it would bypass what would appear to be us lobbying or outside of a public meeting.
Right.
Is that all right?
Yep.
Great. Anything else on that item, that matter, the citizens group and our participation?
Not for me.
Well, I want to say, I told Joan, she has, something happened to her that she wasn't anticipating. And I thanked her so much for handling
No,
it.
this is, you know what? I just wish I had thought ahead and put some mulch in my garden and pansies by my front door, because things are looking really, really bleak at the top of Skytop Hill. And anyway, it's over now. So it is what it is.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So then the next
welcome.
item on the agenda is the Manchester Housing Authority, Manchester Affordable Housing Trust, a study outreach and next steps. The last meeting, we talked about a couple things that we wanted to move on. And if I can find. And one of the things we discussed was having a small focus group. We committed to doing outreach to housing authority residents and the town as part of our engagement process, which would lead us up to then moving forward with a request for proposal to solicit a developer. So at our last meeting, we had talked about, let's put our minds together and see what's the best way to do that. And we've had some traction, we gained some traction in the last week regarding outreach and engagement with residents at Loading, at the Plains, and at Newport. And unless something has changed, working with Irene and then working with Nancy, we might be able to get folks together next Wednesday. I think we're talking about 3 o'clock at the chapel, right off of
Pearl Chapel,
Kroll Chapel.
yes.
And-
So I was on the Housing Authority meeting from 3:30 to 4 before I had to jump off to go to the state meeting. And Irene made no mention of that meeting. So
I spoke to her.
it's gonna take me making a flyer and calling all the tenants and telling them about the meeting to get them to come, because I don't think Irene will do anything to encourage her tenants to come.
I talked to her for about 20 minutes yesterday, and we got down to details that I will first talk tonight here and we'll get confirmation, and then we could, I could write up a quick paragraph that could be put in the form of a notice that could be issued to residents.
I think that's what it's gonna take, John.
Yeah.
I've worked with her way too long. She's not gonna be sending out information to the tenants. I mean, I asked her about the condition of the property at Loading Place Road, because I walk my dogs over there, and there's broken furniture, there's couches, there's chairs, there's dining room tables out in the, I mean, it's just, it looks like something you read about. And she just poo-pooed it and said, well, it is what it is, and we can't do anything about it. So I said, well, it's a real problem in the neighborhood, and I hear problems, and I don't like it. So we'll see what happens with that. But they put a new septic system in, and that was her reasoning for having the property looking the way it looks. So
How much time do you think residents would need to get them to a meeting?
for some, it's just gonna, if we make a flyer up in my office tomorrow and circulate it, or I just really need to call one person at each site, and then they spread the word like wildfire. I can have enough of them there that they can get the information and bring it back to the people that won't come.
Okay, let me pause and step back for a moment. The idea of having a public gathering in lieu of a remote meeting such as this, and to have it at the chapel, it wouldn't be an advertised meeting. I believe we're talking about, Chris and I expressed interest, where we would just go and meet with residents.
Yeah, informational.
Informational. Is that something that's okay? It's with that's something we've been discussing. I just don't want to assume that that's a path without.
I think that's a fair and good thing to do for the tenants. You know, I think if the tenants feel that they're part of any process moving forward, you're going to have better buy-in, and they need to know what's going on. And her approach is not to let them know. And I've just gone through it with another situation with public gardens or community gardens up there at the Plains. And she doesn't want the tenants to have any input on community gardening. She's setting a policy in place. She wants the board to vote on it. End of story. Tenants have no say. I said, that's not the way to go. The tenants need to feel that they're part of the process. So I feel that if the tenants feel they're part of this process with redevelopment and bettering the property, then everybody's going to be happy, and it's a win-win.
Okay.
Yep.
Are folks okay? And I'm not implying that you need to be there. In fact, I would say you can't be there because otherwise we'd have to advertise. But the idea of reaching out, that's consistent with what we've been saying.
Yes, and quite honestly, I think that's what the Housing Authority Board is expecting to happen.
Okay, so I just wanted to.
You would hope.
Yeah, I think, John, my
Yes.
concern is going from the leap from the communication to an RFP. Because everything we've seen in what's been presented to us is assuming the DPW lot is available. And it isn't available. Nobody's made it available to us, and I'm concerned about jumping over that delta, whether we'll get any response to an RFP if we don't have the DPW lot available.
Well, we could talk about that because I know Chris and I have talked about it, and then we had an opportunity to talk to Eli at a meeting. The idea of having this for a vote, the Pleasant Street vote, and a vote as simple as we, the town, approve the site being allocated for affordable housing, and maybe we agree that we'll accept a nominal price for the land. He says there's a 0% chance of that happening at this near.
Right. Yep. It's got to be the fall.
It would be the fall town meeting.
It's got to be the fall. But at the same time, if we assume we've made our engagement with the Housing Authority residents, and I also want to discuss about perhaps sometime in May, we have a meeting like this, but we just advertise it to the town, and this will be townspeople's opportunity to come and stuff. Assuming we get through that, and then we move to a request for a proposal, it's conceivable that we can put out a proposal just for the Housing Authority sites and put aside for the moment the Pleasant Street, with the assumption being that the financing and the redevelopment plan for the housing authority could conceivably proceed on its own.
I don't see how we would expect a different result from the last time we went out. That's my personal opinion. And I think we have the Citizens Committee that's willing to get behind this project. And I just think we have a lot more work to do before we go out to RFP.
Well, that,
I agree.
Um,
I think it's a jump to go for an RFP until you get a really good understanding of what the town people are gonna.
Right.
prefer.
Right.
Is there a need to go out sooner? I mean, we can have the information and
I just think we need a vote at the fall town meeting with respect to the DPW lot in order to move forward. That's my opinion.
no, I understand that. I think it's well said. And the assumption is then we would have a package of the sites.
Right.
Right.
To be developed over time, because DPW is not going to be available for a while, but at least it would set a bigger package.
I think the only way that it wouldn't is if Bev really comes out and says, under this prescribed circumstances, you wouldn't need the DPW site, and someone was willing to do that. But I don't think she's clearly said that.
Well, but in my conversations with her most recently this morning, she says it is conceivable that the housing side and the public housing side, one, they're talking. Kate Racer, who administers like the housing production, who does all of the tax credit financing and also administers soft subsidy from DHCD, talking to Paul McFarland, who is the state housing authority side. And Bev was saying it's not inconceivable that you could have a proposal that would include tax credit financing and some soft state money to support the rehab and new construction and possibly rehab, some rehab of the housing authority units. She says that's not inconceivable.
John, I'm sorry, but that was not in the performer that we saw. The performer needed the DPW site.
It did, but Sarah, it did, but it assumed that there wouldn't be any tax credits available for the public housing. If it turns out tax credits are available, then each of those projects could actually stand on their own.
That's the difference, Sarah.
And we need more information. We need
Yeah.
more numbers before we move forward, in my book.
Yeah, of course, we do. Absolutely.
Because, you know, we're just going to be back in the position we were in 2019, where we went out and people said the density was too great for the taxpayers to support.
Well, no, when we went out before, nobody knew whether tax credits would be available, whether the
Okay, okay.
MHA was ready.
Right.
There were all kinds of problems.
I
So
mean,
we can pin it down and actually come up with a unit count and all kinds of things.
and
Great.
attach the study as well.
So John, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, when she presents the final plan, is it going to have that information in it that there is that likelihood or that possibility that for that path? Is that going to be laid out in this study? I think that's the question.
Yeah, no, I think she could put reference to that. I haven't looked at the draft or final report in a while. So I don't recall in the financing section how she refers to that. But based on our conversations, I think it would be reasonable to expect that she could put language and reference to that.
I agree with Sarah that I think someone responding to an RFP would need to see that level of confidence in that path forward so that they're not gambling their money and resources and energy on something that's not.
Yeah, let me give you at least the reason why I'm sensitive to this. Given the citizens pushing, given the sensitivity to the work that we're doing and how it seems like everyone, oh, the Affordable Housing Trust is working on the Public Housing Authority sites and they're planning to do something. I'm sensitive to that, and I want to be able to demonstrate that we are acting as expeditiously as possible to do this. And I understand the uncertainty in the place.
John, we need the numbers to support it, and we have not seen those to date. You can have conversations with Bev, but we as a board have not seen any numbers that would support the fact that those properties could be enhanced on their own standing.
Okay, no, that's, go ahead, Chris.
Well, so let's do that.
I was gonna say the same thing. We could have her, let's have her run a scenario that assumes tax credit financing and
Sure.
perhaps some soft money from DHCD that would act as a grant. And let's look at that scenario and let's evaluate that, the pros and cons of that, is it pragmatic?
Sounds good.
I hear what you're saying, Sarah. We don't want to go ahead and move forward quickly, just to move quickly when we don't have something that we could stand on. Because then the unfortunate result would be, as you're describing, we might not have any applicant. But
Right. And John, my position is we received a report. The report we received said they needed the DPW spot to make it economically feasible. Now you're going off and having side conversations, but nothing has been presented to the board regarding changes in the financial calculations, which would support enhancement of those individual properties as a standalone effort. That's what I'm reacting to.
No, and I acknowledge that. So why don't we, if we could reach out to Bev, Sue, if you want to do that, that's fine. If you want me, I can do that. And in essence, we're just saying, can you do an additional financing model that assumes tax credit financing, so that as in addition to DHCD Public Housing Authority financing. And then why don't we could reserve a decision until we get that.
And it could be one property at a time.
Yeah, sure could, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to have that discussion with her, or I'm happy for you two. It doesn't matter who I think has the discussion with her.
Why don't you reach out to her then, please? And if she's got any questions, you could just say it's really the scenario that you had discussed with me this morning. I work with Bev on a couple other projects in Boston, so I was talking to her about that. And I said, listen, while I have your ear, could I talk to you about this other scenario? And she said, yeah, it seemed likely. And she recounted her conversations that she's had with state officials. So,
Well, the company I work for is actually working on a transaction right now in Holbrook, Massachusetts. Holbrook is a little bit bigger than Manchester, but it's about the same size. And they've gotten approved for a 70-unit new construction senior housing project in their downtown. So I have those
With
numbers.
DHCD funding?
No, not with DHCD. That's the problem. Where we're treading into new ground is that no one, to my knowledge, has ever done a tax credit transaction with state public housing. It happens with federal public housing all the time. But it's never happened with this stupid state because they're so backward. But I think they sense that now too, that they don't have any way of maintaining these units, and this might be their way out if they could just allow these things to happen.
That's how we started this. That's how we started this discussion. Yes.
Exactly. It's
Full circle.
With each one of you.
but we just persisted, I think.
So I do think we need it. I do think we need it spelled out, because you can't just put out an RFP that says there might be a possibility of some finagling. Maybe.
No, it's true, but the actual application for tax credit financing can't be done by us. It's gotta be done by
The
someone like
developer.
Mickey or.
Yeah.
Right, but they have to
Andrew or
believe that it's,
somebody.
they have to have some knowledge or some, base that it's possible.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
think if it's in a report, and that would certainly help out.
So I'm thinking aloud here, this discussion that we have, does it change our approach for trying to meet with residents Wednesday of next week, a week from now? Or do
I
we,
don't think so. I think we,
No, I don't think so.
No,
yeah, we need to talk with them and find out what they're thinking.
so let's not put that off. Let's do that as
Yeah.
soon as reasonably it's feasible. Okay,
and present the
because-
proposed enhancements to each site.
yeah.
And it's about building the relationships with the residents so that at each step, there's a comfort level and they get to know people that are involved with this, and it will help settle them down and feel like they're part of it. So, yeah,
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
that's great.
And I
So
think it's important to make sure that Gretchen, I don't know if she has to come, but she has to be aware of it.
she's
Oh,
definitely,
yeah. Yeah.
she's been involved in some of the emails, and I would expect her to be there. So, I mean, do you think like maybe a one-pager printed both sides, as brief as and as simple as possible, explaining what has happened and what are the proposed envisioned improvements, and then we can be available for questions, comments.
Yes, very bullets of information, very brief, just give the information, the facts, not too much information. And that'll spark questions and get the conversation going.
And we'll say
And John, a one pager both sides is 2 pages.
2 pages.
So 1 page is better.
I agree.
So then we'd have 2 things. One is just we invite you to meet with, and that's something I could do very simply. But then the second is before Wednesday, having a 1-pager or 2-page. I mean, do we?
Don't forget, they know something about this because many of them have answered the questionnaire, and we've
That's right. Yes.
we've sent information to all of them before, so we don't need to be explicit on the process so much as we're checking in now.
Right,
We wanna
So-
meet with you.
Don't forget, they don't
Mhm.
remember a lot.
Right, I know.
I
But they won't
deal with them
read
every
2
day,
pages. They
believe
won't
me.
read 2 pages either.
No, a one pager, very simple, minimal
And,
bullets
even-
things that are gonna, make them ask questions. That's what
Right.
we'll do for.
Well, we're
Right.
gonna get people from both the Plains and Newport coming
Mhm.
Hopefully,
and loading place.
And loading place.
and loading
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, I mean,
All in 1 page, Chris.
Gonna be legal size page.
so it begs the question of what type of information we want to put. Part of me says, let's keep it general, and maybe we don't even need to have those preliminary site plans showing the buildings.
no,
I wouldn't
no.
show site plans.
no.
But do we need to give the estimated number of new units?
I think we could do that, and we could say, based on the work we're looking at, we're trying to take advantage of a need and an opportunity, a need for rehab and an opportunity to create new units. We think there's some space at Newport in the back left. We could talk, it's something that will be built in context. We're looking at approximately 2 levels and say approximately X number of units. Do the same for the Plains.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure their biggest fear is being evicted or relocated.
Right,
That's,
right.
that's
What
the big
happens to
thing.
me? Yep,
So if we
Yep.
can assure
And I
them
think-
that that's not gonna happen,
We
then
can
they'll
address
be,
that right up front,
yeah,
yep,
But it's also true for folks who do have access to computer. We can say, after the meeting, if you want to see a little bit more details, the report is available at on the website for the Affordable Housing Trust.
yeah,
I would say the invitation is very simple and is bullet points, as Nancy said, but I think you can take handouts and give them to them when they're there that would have the pictures or site plans or something. That's how I would differentiate.
That's a good idea,
Oh, yeah,
but you know, it becomes all about me at the end of the day. It's what's going to happen to me.
To me.
Why are they doing this to me?
Yeah,
So those are the fears that you need to squash.
yeah, I agree. No, Sue, in terms of like the invite, we invite you. I think that's going to be very general. I'm not implying putting any site plan or just,
Right.
and then like the 1 page or the 2 page or whatever it is, we can almost have some general information, and maybe we could even have a couple question and answers. You know, what is this? Will I be evicted or something?
You can also do some follow-up after the meeting if you're finding you're getting similar questions. You could do a follow-up 1 or 2 pager based on some of the things you hear them ask and talk about.
sure.
And then it just gets into their mailboxes or however it can be distributed, just as kind of a follow-up for them.
Yeah,
So-
what I've learned over the years is it's much better not to make up an answer, but to say, gee, that's a good question. I don't know. We'll get back to you.
Right.
So Chris and I have expressed interest. We can have, I believe, 1 more. If we have a 4, then it becomes a quorum and it becomes a meeting. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So the question
Yep.
is,
Well, you could
is-
probably post it as a meeting if you wanted to.
I hesitate doing that just because
I'd be careful not to overwhelm.
yeah.
And you
No,
don't
I-
want to overwhelm. Believe me, you don't want to overwhelm.
Maybe
Yeah,
Nancy wants to go.
Yeah, I wonder, Nancy needs to be there for the comfort level for some of the residents.
Yeah,
And Gretchen, in my opinion, that's just,
we have it.
Because the next day, they're all going to call me and
yes,
say,
they are.
what was that all about?
Yeah.
What do you think? What are we
Yeah.
supposed to do?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
We have Nancy, me, and Chris.
Mhm.
Let's look at it. It's informal, it's presentation. It's really just a continued step in our engagement. Understanding that we'll get as much information as possible. We can always have follow-up. And this is really just one of many steps that we're going to be,
lost you, John.
this will be one of many steps that we'll be working with folks.
Yeah, yeah, and they need to just continually be, they need their hands held a little bit along the whole way in the process, so they don't feel like they've been forgotten and left out, and,
that's what it's all about with these folks.
right,
That's what it's all about. They
Right.
need to feel that they're in, they're part of
Right.
it.
right, right.
So Nancy, how about by this time tomorrow, I could send you something really simple. Do you have the ability to, like, you want to put it on you print it out?
Yeah, I'll print it out and I should really ask Irene for permission to distribute it, but I know at Newport, I can get people to distribute, put on doors, and probably at the Plains. I mean, I should involve her, but she hasn't been forthcoming
Right,
to say she wants to be part of this on next Wednesday. But
Right.
I'll reach out to her tomorrow morning and say, I'm gonna have a document I want to distribute. Is that okay? And see what she says.
Well, again, this is
You should
consistent with my
definitely be
conversation I had with her
invited to-
yesterday.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I just will remind you that she has had no conversations with the Housing Authority Board about any of this. It's not discussed on any meetings.
the only time it's discussed is when they've joined us, correct?
Absolutely.
Right, right.
Nancy, do we, I guess, funny question. Do we have the chapel? Is 3 o'clock possible?
I can get, the chapel isn't being used. I'll send an email tomorrow and reserve it. That'll be
So,
fine.
so
Although
logistically,
you may want to have someone turn on the heat turn
Yeah,
up
they
the
will.
heat.
They'll have it open and put the heat
in
on.
advance.
so and then logistically, in spacing and stuff, yeah, I gotta bet I've never been in there. Is it appropriate for?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a
It's
perfect-
beautiful,
Gorgeous.
John.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
Right.
small, but gorgeous.
And I think up front, you should let everybody know in the notification that because of COVID, we're gonna be socially distances.
Yeah,
Okay.
and everybody has to wear a mask and all that. And
Yeah.
I'll have food there and that'll bring them.
Oh, bring them.
That'll bring them.
Pull up the van.
If they know I'm having food, they'll be there.
Might be me too.
Is 3 o'clock okay then?
Yeah, 3 o'clock's fine. I have vans on the road till 4. So, you're gonna have, what, a 45-minute at most presentation?
I'd round it off to an hour, but you're probably right. Yes.
No, but she needs to take the people back before 4.
So
Okay.
45 minutes that's really that's the capacity.
Okay.
Don't, and you want to send everybody home with something written that they can go home and reread
Right.
and then
Right.
remember what you talked about.
Okay.
Right.
Why don't we say 45 minutes? We'll have a one pager. Hey, Chris, unless you object, how about you and I work on something and we could send it to the group here? I mean, I don't want to make a major thing out of it. If folks want to look at the draft, we can do that. Otherwise, we can just summarize something.
I would say get Nancy sign off on it.
Agreed. Yeah.
Sorry to be so blunt, but I work with these folks every day.
Yeah, no,
I live next door to one and Nancy is more than spot on.
well, hell, I am one.
Oh, no, you're not there yet.
No, you're not, Chris.
Bullet points, larger fonts.
Just facts, just very basic facts, so that people can say, oh, wow, I'm not gonna have to move.
Right.
To just, calm the fears.
That sounds great. So why don't we, is there anything else? I know on this one, there's going to be things coming up. Nancy, why don't you, me, and Chris will just commit to working together.
Okay,
Rise. I'll get you something by this time tomorrow.
okay.
Anything else? So the only other thing I would want to discuss with us, this is the residents of the Housing Authority. We've committed to now then reaching out to the townspeople, residents, and having a meeting to review. This, I envisioned, could be a meeting where Beverly, our consultant, could join us.
We need a more definitive plan before we go.
Yeah,
Yeah, we had
I
agreed,
think-
we had agreed that we would wait for the plan for that.
I think a workshop would be a great idea, a public
Mhm.
workshop. But yeah, I think let's get through the residents first.
So do you want to, we'll go through this and then we can have a meeting, our next meeting in May, and then we could discuss the opportunities for having, whether it's a workshop or a remote engagement for townspeople, something like that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm sure the planning board would love to have a presentation made to them.
Oh, God.
I would say have a planning board meeting before having the public.
Good
workshop.
idea.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Is there any other item not reasonably anticipated that didn't make it on the agenda? I'm assuming folks are aware of the SLV, what's happened in the last couple weeks,
Oh.
last week.
Yeah, do we want to make a statement as to what our recommendations are for the new SLV?
I think we need to. And it needs, the comment period ends on May 15th, I think.
May 24th.
Oh, May 24th.
Yeah,
So we
So-
need to come up with something.
it can be a number of bullet points. Our town council recommended that that the Board of Selectmen send the letter, including bullet points from each of the boards, and then also attach whatever the board sent as their own document. So I think that's a good idea. I mean, you've already discussed what you really wanted, so shouldn't
We
be
did
that.
comment on the first one, and I don't think the comments on the second one will be any different.
Well, I was
think
just
we
thinking
need
the
to-
same thing.
I think we need to have a meeting to discuss it.
Okay, the next meeting then.
Yeah, it should
Why
be
don't
on
why don't we
next.
do this? We can just, yeah, because I think whatever time for our next meeting will happen before the public comment period ends on May 24th. So why don't we have it on their
Right.
next agenda?
Yeah.
Recommendations for the new the new plan.
Well, I think it's comments.
Comments, yeah.
Ooh, the slundering out.
I just
Yeah.
heard thunder myself.
Right.
Anything else, folks?
Ooh, it's
Next
buzzing.
meeting date,
Meeting date.
So it looks like we have to have the week of the 17th. It's the 19th. At a similar time, 4:30 or 4 o'clock.
4:30 is good for me.
I'm good with that.
4:30 is better for me because I've got housing authority at 3:30.
So that'd be five, just to be clear, 5:19 at 4:30.
Mhm.
Folks, I'm okay with that?
I'm good with that.
There's no little dot in my calendar,
Mhm.
whether that means anything or not.
We add that right now then.
Woo. Thundering here in Newburyport as well.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Yay.
Aye.
Sarah, I'll see you on the other webinar, starting at
Right,
6.
in 9 minutes.
Be there.
No dinner tonight.
No dinner tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
thanks.
See you.
Seeing everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.